What's up, everyone? This live episode of Power Spike is brought to you by Trolley Sour Bright Crawlers, the gummy worms that want nothing more for you to chew, other than for you to chew their delicious sour heads and bodies into pieces. Trolley Sour Bright Crawlers crawl to the beat of their own yummy gummy drum, and truly, unlike any other sour gummy out there. Thank you so much to Trolley for making it happen here on Power Spike. What's up, everyone?
It's almost like we can. Yeah, we just filmed the first episode. Now we're just doing back to back. So if you're live, you get to see how the sausage is made. But if you guys want to get Trolley, you can look down below of the YouTube videos or in Twitch chat, and there'll be a link of where you can purchase Trolley. Spoiler: the answer is everywhere.
Everywhere.
So go do it. They are delicious, especially the berry ones.
Please tweet at us. We keep track of the numbers. We watch everything. We know all of your tweets. All right, you guys are good? Cool. Good. We kind of did that. So we don't have to do it again. All right. One thing news that kind of came through recently that we didn't hit on last episode, and we had Guy in chat kind of complain about it until I was like, oh, this is actually a good idea. The LEC came out with news that they're going to have a salary cap next year. Something that was kind of brought up here in North America in the LCS about salary caps and the player, I guess, power. That was kind of what Phil Aram was trying to work for and against and make the owners work for, between players, owners, and Riot. But it has now come out in LEC. They have some spending rules here and fines that will happen if you surpass a certain level of spending that is set. It's very similar to luxury tax rules in the NBA.
Yeah, it's technically it's very similar to what's being done in Korea right now that was announced earlier this year. And to be clear, it is not a salary cap, even though we're using that term. It is, as you say, Dgon, a luxury tax, which means that if you go above $2 million, which is the cap number, it's not the cap number, it is the roster number, then every dollar above that, I believe you pay 50%.
50%.
And that 50%, so let's say, every dollar above 2 million that you pay, you have to pay 50 cents more. And that 50 cents is divided 50-50 among the teams that are under $2 million within the LEC, as well as 50% goes to ERL teams. Now, all the details of this have not been revealed. But I do think this is going to be a good system. We are trying in esports to move towards sustainability. Obviously, if we want long-term health of the ecosystem, I think these things are just necessary, frankly. Now, the reason why it was already implemented in China, it is going to be implemented in Korea and Europe. And the reason why it cannot be implemented in the United States is that there are antitrust regulations, so the players would have to form a union, a real union, instead of an association, in order for this to be put into place.
It's almost like we've been talking about this for years.
I know. Well, I mean, the players didn't want one before because they were getting paid outrageously unsustainable amounts of money, so they had no interest in making sure that they would get paid less, right? They might now. I think the funniest part of this for me is that had all of this happened like 2 years ago, then NA might actually be competitive on an international scale. Because if everywhere else has a luxury tax and NA doesn't, they could have maybe gotten some super teams together in LCS.
No, we've seen how they build teams here. We've seen the GMing that goes on. Look at FlyQuest. Our league would be worse. The best thing for us is if there was no salary cap, LCK actually wanted to invest, and NA players actually had to just fucking grind the game to fucking gather, bro. We actually had to invest in our development system, and we ended up being a good region. That's essentially what happened to Europe. If Europe had more money, they might not have been as good as they actually were in 2019, 2020. They had to fucking build that shit from the ground up. They actually have infrastructure. They have regional leagues. They have talent development, which we just lack in North America. No one gives a fuck about it.
I want to push back on the FlyQuest reference, though, just a little bit. Their best resulted teams were when they spent, they weren't in the top end of spending, right? It was the Santorin, whoever they had top solo / Viper, right? Power of Evil, who was probably the most expensive there on that roster, but was on a downswing in terms of where he was coming from. And then who did they have at bot lane duo? Like, was that the
Wild
Johnson year?
Turtle.
They had Turtle, right?
Mhm.
And
They had
Wild Turtle.
Ignar.
And
So,
Ignar.
you know, I would push back there just a little bit. But yes, you're right. If we would have just did more on development and had like more stringent rules on spending that owners couldn't have just splashed their money, then who knows where we would be. But we are here now, just like the LEC is now implementing those things after they already have a robust, I guess, ERL system league beneath them, already trying to create talent down the pipeline. Just like everyone is around the world, but now it's helping the top end create some sustainability, as Monty said. Do we feel like what is the biggest difference that's going to happen here, Monty? What is the biggest change that's going to happen here?
I'm not sure it's actually going to change much. Maybe Vitality is over that right now. It's possible that Excel might have been at the start of this year. But I think most European teams, if you combine their 5 players and I think it's their head coach that gets put in that bucket as well. I think for the most part, most of those teams will be under 2 million in spend. So I don't think it's going to affect a whole lot, really. Maybe G2 is up there, but G2 has generally gotten some pretty good value out of the players.
G2 gets the Cloud9 thing. They have the brand name
discount.
Power. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they
the
get
brand
the
name
discount. I mean, that's the best way for teams to be formed. I mean, it's kind of sad that like everything's so contract. I mean, it's like sad in terms of like the competitive side of things, but in terms of the like obviously the money that players can make, it's really great that there's like all these huge contracts in place. But something that was great about old league was it used to just be players that wanted to play together. Like you'd meet players that you liked playing with, playing the game, and then you just develop like a team around them. Like you would replace players with other players that you knew that, you know, you thought were good. And it wasn't just like a GM making these decisions for you. So, I mean, I just think that like teams like G2, part of the reason why they were so good, and your motto references in the Twitter post you made, was because the players really wanted to play together. And because they wanted to play together so bad, they were willing to not make as much money in the immediate and potentially make money from other places, streaming, sponsorships, prize pool at Worlds, making, you know, World Finals is pretty nice when it comes to your prize pool, winning MSI, stuff like that. That was how they were willing to like compensate rather than just getting paid a lot from the organization. So yeah.
Tom, you brought up a pretty good question back in the old day. That I guess teams would be able to get together and players would just play with who they wanted. Was there ever a player or a team? Do you have a couple stories on like ones that didn't manifest that you wanted to play with or never had the opportunity to, or were close to? They were close to having the opportunity, didn't work out. Because I know that you in your head could be like, "Oh, I would have loved to play with X," but like, was there ones where you're close and didn't work out?
Like on teams that I was on, like replacing players.
Either one, where either you were the part to go to them or they were going to join Dig / TL.
Well, Bjergsen was supposed to join our team in 2014.
What?
Before he was supposed to join Curse in 2014. But we just weren't as sure about, you know, him because he was coming off that, like people didn't know he was going to be as good as he was when he was with Copenhagen Wolves. Sure. So there was that. I really wanted to play with Forgiven in season 5 instead of Piglet. Like I remember I had long conversations. I had like conversations with Forgiven. I mean, I was essentially like the captain of the team at that point, which used to be a thing. Like I don't think there's really captains anymore, but like it's one of the main like people on the team, right? So I was in a call with him, his agent, like Forgiven, his agent, Steve, and just discussing like how it would work, like how we would play the game together. What does he want out of teammates? Like what is the goal? Like what type of goals he has? Like those types of things. And then pretty much what happened was Steve was like, all right, I'm going to go to Korea because Worlds was in Korea, I believe. Or no, it wasn't in Korea in season 4, but
it was in Taiwan, Singapore, and then Korea.
Oh, it was in Korea. I thought it was in Southeast Asia or something. Okay.
So the groups were in Taiwan and Singapore, and then the playoffs were in Korea.
Oh, okay. So the playoffs were in Korea, whatever. So Worlds was in Korea, and Steve went to Worlds, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna meet with Piglet when I'm there." And then he came back, and he was like, "I signed Piglet. Like this is our 80 carry." So that was one. Those points where I wanted to like join CL, I mean, those points where like I was not happy on TL where I was gonna join other teams. But yeah, I mean, it was just nice to like be able to easily play with people that you wanted to back then. I guess
It's
is the main thing.
It's all right. Steve eventually got Bjergsen right in Bjergsen's prime. He didn't miss it at all. he picked up Bjergsen right at the peak there. Got the most value from the Bjergsen signing that he could have possibly got.
Yeah, I mean, what, in season 4 when he was like the best Western player by far, season 5 when he was the best Western player by far. I mean, you probably would have had to pay what, like maybe like 80 grand or something crazy for him, like as opposed to
got him
2.2 million,
2.1 million. He got him for 2.1 in the end.
Saved
2.1 with incentives. I mean, a lot of the incentive, and I think it's so smart. You can offer a contract like that based on a team making it to Worlds. That sounds like the savvy GM thing to do now.
Yeah, agreed.
But you know, and then you know the meme will live on forever. 2.1 million, but no one will ever know is actually 600,000 or whatever it was. So, all right, well, cool. Thanks for that trip down memory lane here, Dom. But we'll see if now the power of friendship will play a part in these rosters that are made here in LEC.
At the end of the day, the LEC teams, European teams, have never been paid the most, but they've always performed better than NA teams, right? Even in the dark days of the EU LCS and even before LCS was formed, the Europeans are just hungrier, man. Like, I don't know. They're better and they're hungrier. Yep. And it's never, how many European players have turned down fat North American contracts to stay on their teams? Like, obviously, Caps could have come to LCS at any point in time.
Upset.
And yeah,
Upset's another one. Like,
Upset. I mean, Perks eventually did, but it was only after years of being as good as he was.
Wonder, Yankos, like these guys, Whippo, like even before he ended up joining TL, like, was getting like fucking bags thrown at him. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. So most of these players, it's just a lot of the European players value being on more competitive teams and staying in Europe more than they value the bag. And the other thing too about European teams is they've done, generally speaking, a better job of GMing. Even G2, they always have like 1 or 2 new players on their roster that they've scouted out and are going to have lower contract values, right? Like Yike, for example, this year. And that means that they're going to be able to better balance paying out their stars versus having these super teams. And they will have some lower contract players on their roster. And that's just part of good GMing. So in general, I don't think this is actually going to shift too much and competitively from the European landscape. The players have always stayed in EU who wanted to play there. And now that NA also doesn't have shit tons of money to throw around, it's not like there's going to be a more compelling reason than there has been historically to leave. My point is there were previously more compelling reasons to leave Europe than there are now.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how the salary cap affects things. While Dom is in a life or death battle with his mic stand, for those of you watching on podcast, Dom's mic stand has become as unhinged as him. I'm going to take this moment to self-plug here, Monty.
Oh, great. You love to hear it.
I'm going to Worlds. I made the decision. I'm heading over to Korea to cover Worlds and utilize the skill set of interviewing and talking to players and whatnot over there. I'll be joining for the second half of the group stage, so the 4 group stage matches. I had to make sure to get there because that might be the only time I get to talk to Western players in English. And then after that, I'll be covering the knockout stages in Busan and then the finals over in Seoul. So yeah, just wanted to get that one out there because I'll be doing some fundraising to help me get out there. So friends of the podcast, be on the lookout on my Twitter, on my Twitch, for ways to help out. And of course, I'll be posting those over on the Dgon Esports YouTube channel. So
we will amplify your message, Dgon. Get Dgon to Worlds, and I will also probably be housing you for part of the time while you're here. So
nice. Yeah,
I'll cook you food.
So the big thing that surprised me about Korea food, Monty, and I knew that's where you're going to bring up with food. The beef is so expensive. And it was like cheaper. I wanted like galbi, or I mean, it was less, I guess, cost effective. I wanted Galbi. They gave you one like rib, and it was like $20 or something like that. I was like, that's crazy. Maybe it's because I didn't know how to cook, or maybe I got fleeced, but it was kind of rough. All the pork stuff was like way more affordable, but beef was expensive.
The key, Dgon, the secret to shopping in Korea is to go to Costco in Korea and buy mammoth amounts of meat at a more affordable price point and freeze it, which is exactly what I did yesterday. I went and I spent $1,000 at Costco and just stuffed my freezer full of stuff while I'm going to be living here for the next, I don't know, 7+ months.
All right. Nice. Can't wait. So World's right around the corner, and you'll get a Dgon and Monty mukbang. Dom, you okay?
Yeah. Had to fix my mic stand once again.
You like just got up and left it. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Dom, you can come out to Korea too if you want. All right. We all hang out together.
All right, I'll come to Korea. I definitely won't be shot on sight entering that country.
I think you should. Well, there aren't guns, but anyway, I think
I'll be stabbed instead. Okay, never mind.
Poop shanked. Yeah,
I'm gonna get poo shanked. I'm gonna be like double lift.
I just want to see the content. I want to see the content of you ordering an armada of trucks to Mach T1 and just laughing, standing in front of them and interview. Dgon can interview people on the street about T1. It'll be great.
What if you trucked T1, but then it was in English? And then people would actually stop and be like, "Oh shit, it's a new level. We're global." All right,
English. Okay.
Let's get to our next segment. It's a classic: high key, low key, no key, and we're keeping it here in English in the West. What are the chances for our Western teams? We already know 6 of them, and we have 2 vying for that final slot there in the World's qualifying series, the first and probably last World's qualifying series, because it's been a nightmare. But how do we feel like they stack on up? People, this is the segment that you come here for. The little bit of hope, the modicum of hope, the possibility that both of these very positive experts of League of Legends, these gentlemen, will give us. Let's find out now in high key, low key, no key. All right, let's start from the bottom. Let's start from the bottom because that's easier. We'll get the easy out the way. We'll go with the no key for our chances here for the Western teams. And let's specify, as we always do with high key, low key, no key. I always fuck up. What are we specifying? Monty, what are we specifying? Chances, like chances to get out group stage? Are we setting...
Chances to be successful by any metric. Who will be the most successful Western teams? Who will be the most successful Western teams? Now, obviously, none of them are probably going to be very successful, but some of them might be minorly successful.
Okay. Well, okay. Before we get into everyone's picks here, what is the percentage chance of not having an all LPL LCK quarters?
Pretty high, actually.
I say like 50%.
Well, that's very high.
No, I saw some numbers that were run on this where it's like, I think there was a 60% plus chance that a team could make it through the bracket without ever, or the Swiss stage, without ever encountering an LCK or LPL team. So we are going to get an LCK or non LCK or LPL team, I think, in the bracket stage. I think that's probably pretty likely. Guys, this is why the Swiss system sucks. Okay, it's going to create weird results, and it's probably designed to do that because Riot is insane and loves to do these kind of garbage formats. I mean, this comes from the same people who literally told me to my face in the early seasons of League of Legends that the reason why some matches in the bracket stage of Worlds at the time were best of 3s was because it gave a better chance of an upset. When I literally asked, why are not all bracket matches best of 5s? That was the answer I was given. So they love this bullshit about upsets. Now, I hate upsets. Not upset the player. He's pretty cool. But I hate upsets within any kind of bracket.
Player,
But this Swiss result, because of the way that they're going to be seeding it, and we still don't actually have clear information about the seeding. For example, is LCS number 1 in the same seeding pool as LPL and LCK number 1, which would obviously be extremely stupid and is going to give really fucking weird results in Swiss. But the seeding is going to be a disaster no matter what. And that means that there are going to be some wacky ass Swiss results. And it really only takes, even if a team does hit, in a best of 1, like G2 can win a best of 1 against a lower LCK seed. Like G2 can beat D+ Kia in a best of 1. That's definitely on the table, right? And if that's the game that they win, and then for their promotion match they happen to hit another Western team in a best of 3, well, they can win that too, and then G2 goes through to the bracket stage, right? So there is definitely, I think, a pretty over 50% chance that we get a non-Asian team in the bracket stage. Now they will immediately be smashed, but.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on who they play against, but I think G2 is literally just like a better team than the 4th seed from China and the 4th seed from Korea. Like D+, obviously they looked a little bit better in the gauntlet. Like I was watching them, they looked a little bit better in the gauntlet, but I still think that there's like a fundamental flaw of like D+ that gives G2 a chance to win, where D+ just doesn't close out games well. Like the way that they try to end games, it's very slow. They give the team multiple opportunities. They give the team multiple opportunities to get fights, and G2 is a team that can clutch out fights. So I think that the G2 like could be able to make bracket stage. So all right, are we doing like the high key, low key, no key? Are we gonna start the actual placements?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's start on the bottom.
No key. All right, so we're starting with no key. My pick for no key will be Fnatic, Mad Lions, Energy, Cloud9, and Team Liquid. Those will be my no keys. That'll be my pick.
All of them. Okay.
Yes, all 5.
I agree with that. I'm kind of low key for NRG, but ooh.
I'm no key for everyone besides for G2, and G2 I'm high key. All my cards are on the table.
What about BDS and Golden Guardians?
They're also in no key. Even more no key. They're all no key.
Really?
I think no one has a chance to make it out except for G2.
Okay. I think that's true. I think G2, clearly from what we saw, I was so happy to see them power up in the last stages of LEC, just because we needed some level of hopium for the West, and they have the talent to execute on it. I think they've grown a lot. I know they just got to Korea. I was talking to some people on the team, and they got here 2 or 3 days ago, I think.
Yeah, people went super late. It's so weird how everyone did their breaks. Like we were talking about it a little bit on my on one of my co-streams with Yamato, but like Fnatic and BDS, they both took 2 weeks off before they ended up going to until they re-met in Berlin, and then they ended up going to Korea. So they're only in Korea for like 2 or 3 weeks before they play, which seems like you just miss out on a huge part of the advantage of Worlds being in Korea, which is the solo queue experience.
Sure, but it also wouldn't have been on the patch.
Yeah, BDS 1 makes sense to me.
I mean, it's not on the patch, but like the thing is, the patch is only relevant to the competitive aspect. But normally when you travel, the first things you do is you spam solo queue. Like normally you'll get like 3, 4, 5 days off, maybe even a week, where you just get there and everyone just wants to play solo queue like 20 games a day and just like grind their mechanics and like get themselves in like good form personally. So even though it's not on the patch, like number one, the World's patch wasn't super big this year. Like there's a lot of things that will carry over. But I think number two is just that like the fact that you're in a competitive region with a really good solo queue should just be a massive advantage to your team.
Yeah. I think, you know, a lot of the Asian teams also weren't scrimming though because of the Asian games, and like so many of the players on the top teams have been preoccupied with playing on the old patch and everything like that. So I don't know if the Asian teams are necessarily going to have an advantage, but I thought that maybe they'd get here a week earlier. I was kind of surprised to hear that teams were arriving this late on. I thought maybe they'd be here by, I don't know, September 23rd or something like that. But yeah, you do need a little bit of time to warm up. But also these teams are most of these teams like G2 are going to have an additional week or so of play-ins that they're not participating in order to get up to speed. But yeah, BDS being here late, I mean, when everything's on the line in like a week, that's a little bit surprising.
Well, Dom just threw it all out the window there, like, or on the table there, just to start off. Monty,
all right,
what
I'll
do you
do
got?
no key.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm super not interested in. I think no key excited for Team Liquid. There's just no way that APA and Yun are going to stand up at this level of competition just on a pound for pound skill basis. I think Cloud9 has typically, even with these players that are very potent within North America, like MNS he's done so, man. Like, this guy's not going to be on this team next year. They showed a lot of kind of individual weakness at previous events with players like Fudge not really being able to hold up at an international level. So I guess it's really like Berserker and Blabber and how much they can do. But I'm not super, and I think the support diff between Sven and many of these other international supports that they're going to be facing is absolutely enormous. So I guess I'm not super excited about Cloud9 either. I have to say, like, obviously, like, BDS, I think Golden Guardians will beat BDS, so I'm definitely no key excited about that as well. And I'm not sure I'm entirely out on Mad Lions, but Chasey has not been great.
I'm really out on Mad Lions.
Chasey, I think Chasey's really going to struggle.
If you look at that team historically, like, they have done, I mean, you look at MSI, right? Like, just this same exact team, how they played at MSI, they look so uncomfortable. And I feel like Niski's always like struggled internationally. If you look at Niski's career, as soon as he goes internationally and like he's playing versus these better laning players, it's very hard for him to be effective.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's
Splice,
probably
is
true.
that the only time that he felt comfortable in at that kind of a level? But
did he even make it with Splice?
Didn't he? Or is that
that was humanoid?
Or am I thinking of Jizuke? Was Jizuke on Splice?
No, he was on Vitality.
Vitality. All right, I was thinking of Vitality. My bad. Okay. I think I'm interested that I guess I didn't really think about Jan and APA as much. I think Jan is going to be okay, but it's more the fact that Summit's class is really good. He can be, his highs are really good. And it's just,
that guy is one of the worst teleport users I think I've ever seen. And like, just watch how good top laners use teleport, and you will see why it's going to be.
They're just not a team. They're just not a team. Like, so many of these teams, that the reason why they're going to get broken apart is because the top tier Asian teams are just functional teams of 5 players that work together. And when you watch, when you watch every team outside of G2 play in the West, they're all just individuals. They're just playing solo queue. Adam's doing his own thing. Like, no one knows what he's fucking doing. You look at like Golden Guardians, they kind of had like some team play going on, and then
NRG did too, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, NRG, it's like, I mean, they do have team play, but they just make massive mistakes. Like, they'll make massive tempo errors where some guy will get chunked before Drake, and that's just not going to fly versus the top teams. Like, I think Weibo and Damwon could potentially drop games. I think the other teams are just too good.
Now is the time where all of us friends, let's get that copium out here. This is my inhaler. I think the other thing that hurts like a team like Team Liquid is that they don't, this sounds dumb, but they don't play in plans, right? And so they don't get those like warm-up games to get their feet under them and make sure that they're okay and ready to go. It'll be quote unquote Golden Guardians or BDS, but hopefully Golden Guardians that will get those games to have warmed up. And I think a team like TL with the youth there and the variance of Summit, that would have been helpful to get their games there, because I think Cloud9's pretty battle tested, and Energy are very much as they could say whatever they want about Worlds. I think their goal was to like ride it to make it to Worlds, 1, and then 2, just like vibe out and win LCS. Like, I don't think getting games now would have mattered to them as much as it does to Team Liquid, a team like Team Liquid. So I've got TL in the no key. I actually have Energy in no key as well. Sorry, boys. I think it's more of a Actually, and I have Cloud9 and Noki as well. It's Golden Guardians for me. I think Golden Guardians is the team where
All right, I'll start with lowkey because I am kind of lowkey interested in Golden Guardians for the following reasons. They have been more than the sum of their parts at times, and they've shown better team play than most other teams, at least in the North American region. And perhaps they have a higher ceiling in a macro sense. But the other reason is because a lot of why they did badly in NA playoffs was the breakdown in Gory and River that was kind of inexplicable. And from what we've heard, a lot of that possibly was homesickness and a drop in performance. Golden Guardians will be in Korea, so they're going to have a chance to kind of reacclimate themselves to the Korean environment. And if that remotivates them or brings the spark back to Gory and River, then this team, it's not like Golden Guardians was potentially a winner of LCS summer. Like, that's not an outrageous thing to say before they dropped off. And if they can regain form, then maybe it will go well. I think this is a team that we saw the floor be pretty disappointing, but we've also seen the ceiling, and that was a potential LCS winner. And I think they just kind of will hang together better when compared to Asian teams than most of the other teams in North America. So that's my hopium, is that somehow we get the revitalization of Gory and River, and they maintain their kind of better macro sense and team play than most of the other Western teams have had.
Guy in chat says, how can River have Rome sickness, he misspelled. That man played for how many splits in LMS? Which is true. It was mostly Gory that was homesick, but I think when Golden Guardians was disseminating this information, they were trying to not make it just a Gory focused thing. Gory was
pretty bad compared to what we had seen previously.
Yeah, he was pretty bad, and he was the most homesick from what I heard. It kind of correlated to me. Who else do you have in lowkey here, Monty?
I guess Fnatic. Are they going to be fielding their full roster for Worlds?
I mean, is that even a good thing? If they field their full roster, is that better than just fielding Wunder?
Wunder was just playing Ornn and Renekton. Like, he was good, but he was clearly, I think, kind of rusty in terms of the breadth of his champion. I think he'll perform
way better than Oscar at his first Worlds compared to Wunder at Worlds. I'll take Wunder any day of the week.
Sure, especially if Wunder would have more time in order to get his champion pool more online and mesh with the team. Maybe he was an emergency substitution. So I think that's fair. But
no, I think that's actually good for them, though. Like, I think that they need somebody who's just going to like him meshing with the team isn't the issue. For me, I think their issue is like they had no identity before Wunder joined the team. They were like they had Oscar sometimes playing carries, and they're just trying to like play through like all three lanes. And when so Razor has that many options,
you like them just leave Wunder on an island. He got the Dyrus treatment, dude. He got Dyrus.
Look at 2 lanes. Like, make the game so much easier. Yeah, exactly. Leave him on an island. He'll be fine, and he's gonna be fucking mega relevant later on. I think that's actually good for a lot of teams. I think a lot of teams can benefit from this. It's like essentially just having like a weak side top, but instead you have like somebody who's just one of the best top laners that's ever existed in the West. Playing that role. So as soon as you get into team fights, he's just a fucking monster.
I mean, Oscar has stepped up in terms of not having nerves, especially as a rookie player. I guess I'm not that concerned about him, but I can see your point about overall team makeup and identity. But I think right now, in an ideal, if I'm going to be huffing the hopium here, the ideal scenario is to have a more streamlined version of the Oscar roster rather than a rusty Wunder.
I mean, I think Wunder Rusty is still better than like almost any other top laner. Like, I'll take Rusty Wunder over anyone. Like, I think Wunder is just like literally the best top laner in Western history, and I just think he's so fucking good that if you put him on a team and he knows he's like, you saw what he did with no practice.
With no practice time. No, he was good. He was good. Like, he did his job.
He was straight up just better than Chasey. Like, he was just straight up better than Chasey. He played well into Broken Blade. Like, he had lane leads like pretty consistently in matchups that we saw BB like dominating before, like versus other players. I thought he was just like, yeah, he's just exactly what you need on that team. I mean, he's too good. I mean, Oscar shouldn't be compared to somebody like Wunder right off the bat. I think it just is what it is. But I'll also say that Oscar, I thought, had before he got injured, like not even including the series that he was injured for. I thought that he played worse in like playoffs of summer and in playoffs of summer than he did in that like first stretch. I thought his regular season he looked really good. He looked like one of the best top laners, and then I think he actually started playing worse as time went on.
I'm doing research now for you boys. It looks like Oscar posted yesterday. My first Worlds is coming up. If you have any questions for me before we fly to Korea, come drop them in the Fnatic app.
Wait,
and
they're
I'll
not
answer
here
them
yet?
I mean, I don't know. No, they're not, because I can see they're in the Fnatic facility when he posted this video. So who knows?
All
Maybe
right,
they.
I'm downgrading.
Also uniquely on there, kind of funny. Ibai and all the Spanish players were eating together on September 14th. So definitely no what is that called? Tampering talks there. None whatsoever. Elioya, Oscarin, and Resort, I guess the whole crew's there. So anyway, kind of interesting to see all that together on Oscarin's page. But it looks like it's going to be Oscarin. Wonder hasn't posted anything
Look,
since
the upside of this Fnatic team is obviously huge. I don't have a lot of hope for them. This is my gassing you up with hopium take. Noah's going to play a little bit less insane and more of a.
I mean, he's been not good since regular season. Like that was the whole story of Fnatic as a whole. Like they looked so much better in the regular season of summer than they did before. I mean,
he was overplaying a lot of those team fights in terms of like summer spell usage and desperation to be the guy to make the play, you know?
Noah went from the guy who was literally unkillable, right? Like that was his thing. Like he had like 70 KDA to dying like 9
just, like,
times
flashing
a game.
into the middle of the team.
Like, what the fuck happened?
Well, maybe he'll be revitalized too once he gets back to Korea. And a humanoid will return to his Worlds form, which he did last year. He returned to the Worlds form, and he was one of the better players, Western players in Worlds last year. This is the hopium take, guys. I don't think Fnatic's going to do anything, and especially not if they're not already here. Because remember, you're going to lose a day too when you come here, so it's a bit odd that they
aren't here,
haven't arrived.
Aren't there? All right. Last question. Any high keyers? Dom, you
G2.
said high key G2.
Yeah, I'm high key excited for G2. I think G2, they're a team that I like how they prep for tournaments or like how they prepped before. Like I think they get actual value out of their practice. So I'm interested to see what they actually come out with. Because they seem like they're the type of team they understand they need to bring different things in order to perform at a high level versus better teams than, just the standard meta. And they have experience. They have players that like understand what it takes to actually move far into a tournament. I mean, if you look at Caps and Mickey X in their 2019 run when they ended up making finals together, the reason why they were so good was because they had 50 million flexes that the team had to always respect. Like they're playing Yasuo bot lane, right? So every team is so preoccupied with, oh shit, Gragas, Yasuo, oh, but they can also flex the Yasuo mid. All right, maybe we have to ban that. Syndra bot lane, Syndra mid lane. Suddenly that has to be banned as well. Then Perks is like the best Kai'Sa and Xayah. Like they had enough of like the strong meta stuff available at that tournament, so they were able to play that as well. So like having this massive repertoire of strategies to throw at these Asian teams, that's really how you're going to beat them. Think about every time that we've seen Western teams be successful against Asian teams. In MSI that year, what was it? The Pyke top from Wonder.
Yep.
Like the Pyke top was such a powerful pick. Like that was a clutch pick that ended up winning them a series against SKT, who was a better team than them at that time, like in terms of like raw standard League of Legends. So I think that they have the correct approach. And we just have to see
they also have laners that have held up very well internationally previously.
Yeah.
As worried as we were about Broken Blade coming into MSI, he really did very well, surprisingly well at MSI after having kind of some weak domestic performances. And then clearly Caps and Hansama and Mickey X are all totally fine in terms of their ability to withstand difficult lanes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where you have to hope that they end up with a read that ends up being effective. That's really what it is. It's like, are they going to end up with an effective read on the meta and like, you know, what could actually counter what the meta is, so that they're able to adjust whatever strategies they have coming in to like make them effective against these better teams.
I mean, that's almost never a problem, though, for teams that aren't in play-ins, because the meta gets solved a lot in play-ins typically.
Yeah, but there's normally better teams playing in play-ins, is what I would say. It's
But
like
the
if you
teams,
look at
but
play-ins,
here's the thing, but the teams have the time to practice. It's not just about what's going on that we can see from the public angle. It's about what's going on with the extra week of all of these teams scrimming against each other while play-ins is occurring.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens here and how G2 can get the leverage on up. And I agree with Dom's take here in terms of it's the uniqueness. You can't just try to out meta and execute better than some of these.
It's always been G2's strengths, right? And
Eastern
they're unafraid to experiment domestically, internationally. Like they're great at this. And I think Dylan, their coach, does a wonderful job of preparing a lot of different scenarios and tricks that they can play. They also just win games at level 1 a lot of the time because they're one of the best level 1 teams in the world, honestly. Like they have a lot of level 1 set plays, and in a Swiss system where you can get that upset in a best of 1, like G2 can take a best of 1 against many of the teams at this tournament. Probably not like Gen G or JDG.
I think they can beat Gen G in a best of 1. I think Gen G is like not. I think Gen G is being overhyped by people. Like I don't think they're that good of a best of 1 team.
I think Gen G is extremely good at overcoming poor early game states and stabilizing. I think they've shown that many, many times, and that if anything, like Peanut is at some of his best when he's getting dumpstered in the early game in the jungle, which is something that we could absolutely see. I mean, G2 attempt versus them.
When I think of Gen G internationally, when I just look back at MSI, I thought that they were actually really bad at dealing with early game deficits. I think that they're fine when they're comfortable. I think internationally the players are less comfortable, and like they kind of have that international choker vibe about them. But like the way that they ended up,
that is a true statement.
The way they ended up processing and coming up with the conclusion of how to answer the Chinese teams, I thought was terrible at MSI. Like the way they played against BLG, they just, when you went into the tournament, everyone remembers the mindset was, oh, Gen G is really good at giving up the first couple Drakes and playing side lanes and getting gold. Yeah, and cross mapping, and you know, coming into that third Drake fight down 2 Drakes, but up 2-3K, and then winning the fight from there. And what did they do? They just locked in Annie, Lissandra, every single fucking game
into the Chinese experience.
And then they're just like, let's try to be more Chinese than the Chinese. And then they got out Chinese by China. It's like, what the fuck? Like, of course we're going to get out Chinese by China. Why did we try to out Chinese the Chinese? It made no sense. So, I mean, I don't know if they're actually going to be able to like cope with like a really good early game from a team like G2, because G2, I don't think that they'll lose to. I don't think that they're going to throw the same way like Mad Lions will throw. Like I think a lot of the NA teams and EU teams, pretty much all the NA teams and EU teams besides for G2, can get good early games, but at some point they're just going to make a huge mistake and just throw the entire game. I think G2 knows how to carry out their leads a lot better than these teams. So that's a huge thing that I'm looking forward to. For G2 is because I like if they do come up with good early game strategies, I don't think that they're just going to like make a massive macro mistake and just throw the entire game the same way that we see most Western teams do it. Like think about Mad Lions versus T1 Game 1, for example, in MSI.
All right. Well, lots to look forward to here with G2 being a threat to even the top teams like Gen G. That's our only high key because the West hasn't proven it in a long time. They just haven't. Results will change the perception of a team and of a region, but the West hasn't had it. They haven't had it. They didn't have it last split or last year when no one in North America was able to make it out. Was it Rogue? Rogue was the team that made it to the knockout stage. I forgot which team it was that made it to the knockout stage, but it wasn't. No one in NA did. 2 years ago, it was Cloud9, and that was like a miracle. So we'll see if things change here. Before we get to our next segment, it's time for the fact of the week. Dgon's fact of the week, brought to you by no one. So I haven't prepped these guys. They don't know this one. Here we go. This one is less of a fact of the week and more about like name some, because I know that you guys have some. I brought it up in our last show. We had the role swap. We had Udapon go from bot lane to top lane. Who are some players that have made it to Worlds in different roles? Made it to Worlds, right? Who he is one, correct. Perks is one, correct.
Score. Did Score make it as a jungler in C? No,
see, that's the thing. You have a lot of players.
AD
he made it as a jungler.
Did he make it as an AD in like?
Did not make it as an AD carry.
Made it as an AD.
Unkillable Score only was a OGN/LCK kind of thing. Sven is correct. Sven has.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, these are a couple good ones.
How many left
Fudge.
do we have?
There, I don't know how many are left. I didn't look at all of them, but there's multiple that have made it. Yep, Fudge. Mm-hmm.
Wait, Fudge made it in different roles?
Did he make it as mid?
No.
When he was
he was top. He was top.
He was top both times?
Yep.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Lol. Yeah, because he swapped back before the experiment ended. Never mind. I lied. I don't know why I said that with such fervor to say yes. I've got a really old one that season 2 to season 7. It was a pretty big gap. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was season 7 when they made it. And then this guy retired. It's a minor region. I don't know how much you would remember it, but it's a minor region one. He was probably the most famous player from that minor region until the new famous player came through. But he was definitely at that time the most famous player from that minor region. Yeah, we got some good answers. Chat getting in this one. So if you at home got some answers while Monty and Dom were thinking here, leave us a comment. Comments below. Who are some of the players that role swapped and made it to Worlds? Two different worlds, 2 different world swaps. I don't know why I'm doing that face.
Yellow Star, right? Didn't he make it as AD?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he made
That's
it
good.
as AD.
That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Yeah.
Fuck, bro. I gotta think.
This is a good one, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
The last one I'll give you. This was the one that I was waiting on, the minor region one. Season 2 to season 7. The most famous player from that region now.
Like Mission or something.
Close. The most famous player from that region now is Levi. I was his teammate.
Oh, I played against this guy then. I played against him because Vietnam was Saigon Jokers was in my group.
Saigon Jokers.
So I played against this guy.
Xiaohu as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Xiaohu.
Because he made Worlds as a top laner in 2021.
Do you want to Dom?
I don't remember anyone that I fucking played against. I've removed the Saigon Jokers from my memory completely.
I only remember him because I think he had a guide that was in the client back in the day. They made like an article of his guide because they're capitalizing on Vietnam. It was Archie. You remember Archie?
Vaguely, not really.
Archie was 80 carry for Saigon Jokers at that time, and then he played top lane for the Levi-led Gigabyte Marines, now GAM Esports. But yeah, I'm sure there's some that we missed. So if you got some that we missed that we didn't state,
did Huhi make it as a mid laner? I think Huhi.
Yeah, I got that one.
Oh, you got that.
I got that one. That was the first one I got.
Yeah, we got the North American ones. Huhi, Sven, Hi. One that I thought was gonna be like a false positive that you guys didn't say was Core JJ. Core didn't make it to Worlds.
He never made it as an AD carry because he
was competing against me in NA. There's no way he could make it. It's impossible.
Yeah, he was on Big File Miracle when I was in Korea, and then he was on Dignitas. He's on Dignitas in North America.
Yep. There you go. All right. Well, there you have it. If you have more, please let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, please make sure you like and subscribe our video here, our Worlds preview, because we're going to have a lot more content coming out across the whole Last Free Nation podcast network.
Also, guys, just we've got the Summoning Insight Worlds Mega Preview episode coming up. It's going to be live tomorrow and out later this week. And we have guests from a bunch of minor region experts, so you guys can get caught up for plans. We have some guests from boot camping teams here in Korea, so it'll be fun. You get all the insight.
Boom. All right. Next up, as I've been eating all of these, it's time for Devoured, presented by Truly Sour Bright Crawlers, our friends here over on Power Spike. We're going to devour into which team is actually going to get gobbled up from the Asian side, right? It's basically like lowkey, but only for the Asian teams. Which teams are going to get devoured up by the competition here at Worlds? Let's get into it, y'all. The sour, chewy head that I just bit into is trying to kill me.
You have to chew it more. That's part of the pleasure, is the gumminess of it, right?
Yeah. That's true. But I was trying to devour it for the devourer.
Okay.
All right, let's start off. All right, so we highlighted Gen G might be vulnerable. Dom doesn't think they're as strong as they could possibly be, but we've got 8 of the teams from the LCK and the LPL. You can include, I guess, the PSG Talon and the Flying Oysters. What a great fucking name in there as well. And then, of course, you have Vietnam, but they're kind of their own region. So when we think about the major region 8 teams there, who do we think is going to get gobbled up by the competition?
It's always a Chinese team. There's always one.
LNG might just fucking choke it. Like LNG could completely choke it.
Don't you do that to LNG.
Choke it. I mean, Tarzan's got some choke on LNG. Tarzan's got some fucking choke in him. Like he's like he just has some really bad games sometimes.
How dare you, Dom? How dare you? That's not. Look, the obvious answer is going to be either Weibo or D+, just because the floors of those teams can be absolutely abysmal at times. But it's always the Chinese team you don't suspect that
That's true.
is the one. So here's the thing, guys. We always get 4 Korean teams in the bracket stage, right? Somehow they always at least make it to the quarterfinal stage. They have gotten out of the group stage. Now, Swiss might be a little bit more difficult for them to accomplish that feat. But that is typically how it's gone to Worlds. And then there's always the wacky Chinese choke. So I don't know, man. I'm feeling the BLG choke, Dom. I'm feeling the Billy choke.
Bin is that motherfucker. Bin is an international player. He's think about Bin at every international he's been.
Yeah.
Think about he's been to 3 internationals.
RNG. Yeah.
RNG MSI. Suning went to World Finals, was a fucking beast, and then this last MSI, where he was like arguably the best player up until finals. This guy is fucking freak. That's the thing, is like those types of players, those players are the ones I believe in a lot, because think about who he's going to be playing against. Like these other players are not going to be like. It's so hard to win a game when you've got Chasey versus Bin. It doesn't matter what the fuck goes on. Like if you have Chasey versus Bin, look, I'm a Dokla fan. Dokla is going to get his ass fucking destroyed by Bin. Bin is just different. Like, he's a player. Like, that's the reason why I said LNG, is because I could see Zika not playing it. Like, we don't know how he's going to play internationally, right? He's essentially, like, he's in his second year. He's in his sophomore year. This is the first year he's ever been on, like, a good team.
It's also true that he powered up in a big way over LPL playoffs, but I've also seen these really streaky LPL top laners. I mean, think about Wayward.
I don't think he's streaky. I think Zika is like mega consistent.
No. Listen, hear me out. I agree. I have said consistently that we've seen like he was the rock of the top lane. But when I say streaky, I mean they've had very short careers at the peak. Like they hit this kind of like peak for a while and then they just vanish off the face of the earth.
Talking about top laners specifically?
Yeah.
Like
I don't think that's
know me or something.
Yeah, or Wayward, like I said from last year. I don't think Zeke is that guy, but I do think it's fair to say that he might not perform as well as he did in LPL playoffs at Worlds.
I mean, I could see it just because he's so young, and like with players that are that young, you don't know what you're gonna get. And then also like because I think the Tarzan's also prone to choking. Like I could see 3 of their players not playing well. Scout obviously had one of the most famous chokes that we've seen, that game 5 versus Zika in versus DRX. That was like one of the most egregious games we've ever seen, where he was playing like a matchup that at that point was considered slightly winning.
He looked tilted out of his mind when he was just
solo
dying
killed
in the
5
mid
times
lane.
in a game, or like 4 times in a game. Like
terrible.
Never seen it before. Like that's a historical choke. That's why I'm scared for LNG. But I think Weibo is like just the worst Chinese team by like a significant margin. I think they just are not that good. But Jiahu's just really good. So who knows?
Jiahu's really good, and he's a stabilizing force for the squad and everyone else.
Yes,
I'm
but
surprised
for every ounce of stability he offers, the Shy offers an equal, if not greater, ounce of destability. You know,
yeah, instability in the top lane.
It's the volatility versus the stability battle within the solo lanes on that team.
I'm surprised that none of you volunteered T1 here. Like, I feel like this is the most uneven footing that T1 has been on coming into a Worlds. And I because of the extended absence, not only the performance of the team before Faker got hurt, but then the extended absence of Faker being hurt. Funny enough, on the roster, Pubi is not listed as the sub. They have Sky, their like coach, as the.
But no, it doesn't matter, Dgon. As we know, roster rules in League of Legends are irrelevant. You can emergency sub any player at any time that you want to for any particular reason, whether it's invented, devised or engineered by the team. In EG's case, it doesn't matter. Just whatever. Just put whoever you want in there. Are they on your roster currently? Doesn't matter. Can Wonder just come onto your team? Just walk on? Yeah, it's fine. Nobody cares.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't care. It doesn't matter. So Povey could come back at any moment at the drop of a Faker. But I think T1 is potentially a good example. It's hard to know how much Faker's injury was still plaguing him at the time he came back. He played one game in the Asian Games just so that he could get his gold medal and get the career or the military exemption. So he's had a longer break period. I do think that there were problems within playoffs that for some reason everyone except KT could see, which is that he couldn't play anything that wasn't Nico and Azir. And they got solved. I think by the time that Gen.G hit them in the finals, they looked really solved by Gen.G. And I think some of it will come down to Faker's champion pool and what that's going to look like and the level of his injury. I would say, fortunately, we've seen Zayas get back into form, which he did slump a little bit there during the regular season of the summer split. Gumayushi was shockingly the most consistent player over the course of summer on T1. So it's like, are owner, Keria, and Zayas going to be the best iterations of themselves, and can Faker's champion pool / injury withstand this tournament? I don't really have very high hopes for T1, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I think they're worse than KT. I think KT got some nerves and misread them, and I don't think that's going to happen again. So I think for me, T1's the 3rd best Korean team that's going to go here, and I think they're worse than the top 3 Chinese teams.
I guess that's not the team that's getting devoured, but yeah, that clarifies my point on T1 then. Like, hey, you guys didn't bring them up. If you think they're 5th or 6th, then that's not quite getting devoured. It's just not meeting the expectations of their rabid fan base. Okay. So we'll keep an eye then on upset prone LNG, choke prone LNG.
Look, it's always the Chinese team you don't expect. It's always,
that's true though. It was JDG, right?
Think about
JDG
like FPX too, like just completely getting dumpstered at Worlds. There have been some really, really, really surprising upsets of Chinese teams.
Yep.
What if it was JDG again? That would be the most.
No, I actually think it's just
They're too
fucking
fucking
functionally impossible for JDG to choke.
All their players is too good.
Look, if JDG chokes and like doesn't make it out of quarters at Worlds, which okay, let me rephrase this. If they don't get out of quarters, if they lose in quarters, but they lose to the eventual champion of the tournament, then it's kind of whatever because it's single elimination and this format is just garbage. But you know, if they get beat by somebody very beatable within the quarterfinals, it will probably be one of the biggest upsets in League of Legends history. This team's floor is so crazy high that I just don't see the upset happening.
It's even more than that. I mean, the thing that's so crazy is like they've had so many opportunities to choke. Like they're so good at dealing with adversity within the team. Yep. Think about the series that they just played versus LNG.
Yep.
Like they were down 2-1 in that series. Like they were having not a great day. There was things going wrong, but they're always able to like make adjustments and get better. Think about the T1 series that they played. The T1 series that they played at MSI, where they lose 2 games where like it feels like they can win, and then they just lose a team fight and the Nexus explodes. Lose another team fight, the Nexus just explodes. They lose in one moment in 2 games in a row. Like all these moments are built to break teams, and they've shown that they're like they have their eyes on winning everything. Like they're not gonna fucking break. Like if a team beats them, they're just gonna be better than them. And right. I think that that's very fucking hard to do because you look at the talent across this roster, and it's like every player is such a fucking monster.
I think they have, at worst, 3 of the top 10 players at Worlds. At worst.
I think that like they might have 5 of the top 10 players at Worlds.
That's fair. Like, no, I think you could make that argument, but I'm saying like I think
who's the worst player on JDG?
Exactly.
It could be Kanavi.
It's Kanavi or missing probably.
Yeah, it's Kanavi or missing. But I would say like performance-wise, I would say it's probably been Kanavi recently. Like I don't think he was playing.
He loses them the most games. Let's put it that way. He's like the reason they have lost most of the games they have lost this year is because Kanavi is having a bad day.
Yeah, Kanavi might be the best jungler in the world.
Yeah, but he's the worst.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. Like,
I think it's what you say is that if you were, I know Dom, you're going to make a list of your top 10 players, or have made a list. Like for me, Ruler is the best player in the world right now, so they have the best player, and then from there, I would say that Knight and 369 are almost certainly in the top 10, and then the question is, are Missing and Kanavi also in the top 10? Which is, I think you could make arguments that they are.
That team is fucking insane. That team is so good. That team's so good.
And I think Knight is at worst 3rd best player. Like what would be like Ruler, Chovy, Knight might be your top 3. Yeah, that's pretty fair. So I mean,
it's
rough.
Knight is really fucking good. Knight is really fucking good.
I mean, you could also say Ruler, Knight, Chovy. I think that would also be a fair list. There's lots of ways you could do it, but the point is that they probably have 2 of the top 3 players in the world, and they definitely have 3 in the top 10, and possibly 4 or 5 in the top 10.
I mean, the thing that people would always say about Knight, like the whole reason why people didn't want to rate him for a long time is they said he was an international choker, which I think was overplayed. I always stated that this was overplayed because one of the chokes that they considered was him not making it out of group stage with top esports at the most recent Worlds, where it's like he was the best player on their team by far. Wayward was fucking inting every single game, and like TN was just having a fucking insane stinker as well. So when you looked at that team, it's like putting that on Knight, I think is ridiculous. But I think like Knight clutched it up at MSI. I mean, I thought he was good at MSI. I thought he looked like he was just playing like himself. He just was super confident the entire time. So I think he's moved past that. And then 369 is just so insanely consistent. Like, I don't know how a top laner is that consistent, because normally top laners are like a little ill. They'll run it down randomly for no reason. Like every top laner fucking does it. But 369, for some reason, he can like control himself.
I've said this before, but I don't know how you beat this team, because 369 will just solo kill you on Ornn while playing weak side, and then they just get an advantage there too while they're strong siding on bot. So how do you beat that? Like he's too good. He's winning matchups and he's getting kills and getting advantages that other players don't get. And then you combine that with his insane team fighting abilities and his zoning on tanks. It's very, very difficult to beat this team.
And he also takes no resources in the draft. Like he's the type of guy where you can just give him like Renekton first too. And it's like you can give enemy could pick the most filthy counter pick in the game to Renekton, Quinn top, whatever the fuck it is, and he's just going to be fine. He'll be down 15 CS, and then he's just Renekton in a team fight. He'll show up, double kill somebody in a team fight, just be a fucking insane frontliner, and the game's just over. So, I mean, this team at its peak. That's why, like, they're on the they're the favorites coming into this tournament. They've won everything they've competed in. They haven't dropped the best of 5 all year. Like, if they win this tournament, they are the best team in the history of League of Legends. Flat out.
Bold claim.
I don't even think it's bold. I mean, they would have done something that no one else has done.
Results are the best. I think you'd have to have a debate. I'd have to think more about the overall level of competition. But
2013,
there'd be a very serious discussion about that for sure. I agree with you.
Well, I mean, like, also you have to consider that, like, the margins are going to be nowhere close to as big as they used to be between like top teams. So like season 4 Samsung White, for example, like they had a really good Worlds, but if you think about like their entire year, I don't think you could say that they would put together close to the year that JDG put together.
Well, my counter argument to that would be that the LCK that year was so insanely stacked with talent that it was much harder to win champions in Korea than it was to win Worlds.
Yeah, and I would say that this has been like one of the most crazy years of LPL. Like when it comes to the top LPL talent, I mean, most people have 3 out of the top 4 teams being LPL teams this year. Like this is another year of like stacked LPL. And then also one thing I would say is that this is by far the hardest MSI to win in the history. Like this is like such a valuable MSI compared to all the other MSIs when it comes
that's an inarguable point. This was the hardest MSI to win, period.
Yeah.
Well, you guys answered my question which was, you know, when it comes to it's the team that you don't expect. We're setting it up now. JDG possibly
JDG chokes. It will be the greatest choke in League of Legends history. It's not even close at that point in time.
Sure. I mean, that's the pressure that comes with being the best. So, all right. Well, we'll keep an eye out for LNG, which was Dom's pick, D+, and Weibo, right? Because of the shy. we'll keep it on.
One of them's gonna choke. I promise you, one of these teams. I don't think there's a world where we get all 8 Korean and Chinese teams into quarters.
That's right. I mean, someone's got to make way for energy, baby. All right. I said that with a straight face. Let's move on. Thank you very much to our friends over at Trolley for Devoured.
I appreciate that. Palafox is definitely going to devour Faker. He will take on the Palafaker mantle finally. There you go.
Oh,
the Dgon predictions.
I'm going to devour that prediction and pretend like it never happened. Let's go to our next segment. It's time for our Galaxy Brain Club discussion of this episode. And now it's time. It's all no holds bar, all predictions here for Worlds. The winner, who our dark horse is going to be, most embarrassing, biggest upset, biggest disappointment. Let's get into it, y'all. The Galaxy Brain Club discussion. All right, I feel like you're full of hot takes here. We got you revved up. You calling this as the most dominant team in the history of League of Legends if JDG wins. What else do you got for us here for predictions for Worlds?
Biggest disappointment. I'm gonna go with
the
Gen
biggest disappointment. Gen. Oh my God, no! Don't you do that to Jovi
again.
You think they're gonna lose their minds and just not play their style?
I mean, I guess we have to contextualize what biggest disappointment means. But like, they're a team that like should go top 2
semifinals.
Like if they, I think semifinals. I think it's a disappointment if they play in semifinals versus a team like, for example, T1 or a team like KT and they end up losing. I think that they like if they play against, like, let's say just China dominates this Worlds or something and it's just like BLG versus JDG in finals again, like it's just MSI all over again, then I think it's maybe acceptable to go out in semifinals. But I think the Gen G just like I just need to see more out of this team internationally. And now this will be the 3rd international tournament we've seen with this core, right? With the same top side. So, and like the core of this team, when I think about Gen G, is just like the Peanut Chovy dynamic, right?
Yep.
Like they have the brains and they have the brawn there. So if they don't play. Like they can lose in semifinals, and I'm okay with it. Anything lower than semifinals, automatic choke. Like you didn't make semifinals, you fucked up somewhere. Even if you play against JDG in quarters, it would mean that you must have fucked up in group stage or something in order to get there. I mean, maybe there's fringe cases where JDG has like a really bad Swiss and they end up like as an 8 seed somehow, and then Gen.G just like loses to them. Maybe you could excuse it in that isolated situation, but I think semifinals like is a must for them essentially, and they should probably make finals if they play against anyone who's not JDG or maybe BLG if BLG's on top form.
Is that a disappointment, Monty?
I agree that it would be a disappointment. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I do respect Dom's points that historically, I mean, if we go back to Worlds last year, they were kind of co-favorites heading into the World Championship.
They were main favorites. Like on every betting site, they were the number one over JDG.
I saw at least on esports bet, I remember that there were 3 teams that had even odds on the outright odds for winning the whole tournament.
There was so the way it worked on esports bet is Gen.G was number 1, and then there was all 4 Chinese teams, and then T1. That's what the odds were.
I recall the odds, the outright odds being equal for I believe it was JDG, Gen.G, and EDG maybe. Anyway, I'd have to go back. I don't recall. But in any case, yeah, they were a pretty big front runner of Worlds last year. And what happened last year was that we saw Peanut play pretty badly in the playoffs. We saw Chovy regress to Hanwha Life version of Chovy, not have the same map presence and awareness and side lane pressure that he had cultivated throughout that entire year. And at MSI, as you stated earlier, Dom, we did see them kind of regress into not playing the style that we're accustomed to seeing them play and try and fist fight it out with the Chinese teams at Drake's and make draft selections that I think didn't exactly play to their strengths. And that was ineffective. So we have seen back-to-back international events where they have been mind controlled by the other teams to play a different style, whereas domestically they don't have any trouble kind of maintaining the style that has gotten them very deep and gotten them 3 championships in a row now and 4 consecutive finals. So I think with Gen.G, it's hard to have the confidence in them at the international stage, which is why maybe I don't see that potentially as a disappointment, as it were. I agree that on paper, we expect them to at least make semifinals. Mm-hmm. So anything less than that, I'm not going to predict them to be a disappointment, though, because I think it's pretty likely they'll at least make semis. Unless they hit JDG in quarters because of shitty Swiss, which could happen.
So then
could definitely happen.
Let's start there with you then, Monty. What would be your biggest disappointment? Who is your biggest disappointment prediction? Or what is?
I have to think about who people are actually thinking will go far. I mean, I think the easy answer is KT. Like KT could easily just implode and just not even make it out of group stage. Like that's a possibility that we have to confront. And I think, I don't know, man. I think there are a lot of expectations around teams like D+ and T1, just because the fans see the names of former world champions and expect them to do well. But there's a world where T1 just gets bopped in quarterfinals, or D+ completely fails to make it out of the Swiss system because they are playing like garbage and their late game macro is incredibly disappointing. So I guess potentially the biggest disappointment to fans will probably be T1 or D+, if I had to guess.
I think for me, I have 2. I think the biggest disappointment, and I'm challenging the fans here, is that you have majority LPL fans in the stands for matches. Just like what we saw here with Worlds over in NA. Korea is probably the region that would be most prone to defending that, unless it was literally like an EU team playing in a French like facility for Worlds in Europe. Like that might be the only one because we know how France turns up. But like, I would love it to see the LCK fans show up and be loud and give a home field advantage. That to me would be disappointing. It was like, nope, there's just LPL fans here. They bought the tickets,
the last few events we've had in Korea have been won by Chinese teams.
That's true. That's true. But I'm talking about fans. That would be disappointing to me. Just like I was thinking about biggest disappointments last year. I was super pissed about like week one of the group stages, and it was all LPL fans out cheering when North American teams were playing. I was pissed. We were in the minority. Yeah. I think
being the majority of fans is hard when you don't have fans, generally speaking.
which is why I said the LCK has the best opportunity to do it. I tried to devour your dick there too. That one hurt a little bit, Dom. I think from a North American perspective, which is very unfair, but I think kind of like what you're saying about D plus and T1, the recency and the names attached to it. I think it's Team Liquid for me. I think people might have like trusted that APA is going to be able to cope and handle with all the pressure of international play, because he's been able to handle the pressure of being slot on into this high profile spot and helped Team Liquid achieve Worlds when it looked fucking doomed. Sorry, Harry, but it looked bad. And I think that kind of is where the biggest disappointment from a North American standpoint could come from. I think Energy is going to be okay and have moments to rest their hat on. I think Golden Guardians is going to make it out of group stage or the play-in stage, which I think is fine, and they have the highest ceiling. And I think Cloud9 is going to be competitive, but if they don't make it out of groups, I don't think that's disappointing. Like, I don't. As long as them and Energy do okay, they have like a couple of wins, I think they're fine. I think Golden Guardians has the highest chance to go furthest, but I think people are going to expect more out of TL than what is capable, and I think it's going to fall on like on APA specifically. I think Jan's okay, but I think APA is going to have a hard go.
I think they're all going to get fucked. I think it's going to be crazy. I think Pioshik is going to be like, oh shit, this is why I left Korea. I remember getting I remember when I was 2-16 versus these other Koreans.
That's fair. It would be cool though for TL to play D plus in that qualifier match in the Swiss. And
my God, Canyon. Oh my God. Yeah, go fuck him up.
All right, let's see. Who do you think is going to be the biggest surprise? Who's the biggest surprise here, Dom?
Do I have to do teams or can I do players?
You can do player.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay. I think people are going to be so like, obviously I think that there's a chance that Zika chokes, but I think it's likely that people will be surprised by it because no one really watches LPL. Like, still to this day, not that many people watch LPL. And especially like people don't watch outside of like finals, semifinals. Like, they just watch the end. I think people will be surprised by how good Zika actually is. Like, I think that he's really like the future of LPL top laners. And I think the thing that they'll be the most surprised about is his versatility. The fact that he can play carries like he's one of the best carry top laners in the world. And then he can also play like tanks. And as long as he's not, I mean, even versus 369, I mean, he had some fucking great games versus 369. He played a Fiora versus Renekton game versus 369. It was actually like winning versus a Renekton as Fiora. So like this guy, I think he will like, there's like a 20 to 30% chance he chokes for me. And the other 70% is that he just delivers and plays like an absolute beast.
I think we have to go back to G2. Like, I think if you're expecting all of the Western teams to just get dumpstered, I think G2 has a relatively decent chance of making it out into bracket play. So if that's going to be a surprise to people that a Western team would make it into the playoffs, then I think G2 is going to be it. I think people are going to be surprised by KT because people will look at the two losses to T1 in the LCK playoffs and say, oh, it's just a meme, like KT is bad. But a lot of people just don't even know KT because this team hasn't shown up at Worlds in such an extremely long time. And many of these players haven't been around for the last couple of years. Like BDD, his last performance was on Gen G that made semifinals 2 years ago. Keen hasn't been to Worlds in a very long time. So I think people are going to be surprised by how good some of these players are. Maybe they'll be surprised by Keen. I think Keen is going to have an excellent Worlds performance overall. And it's just his kind of versatility within the role, being able to swap very fluidly between carries and tanks, which enables a lot of KT's style that will, I think it'll surprise some people. I think there's a shot that KT is either just going to get dumpstered or they're going to make semis, and I don't think there's really anything in between there.
I think for me, I think going back to, you said player, I think it's team. I think it's LNG. Like, I think this LNG squad has such a
I love LNG, man.
high ceiling. Again, the choke factor is there, Dom, but also the quality of Tarzan and Scout. Scout's just been there for such a long time. You know, he's been a top mid laner for such a long time. And I feel like this is a team that's poised to break on out and surprise people who aren't familiar with it. So we're all in the same kind of mindset here in terms of LNG or someone on LNG. I think that's the big one. And then, finally, Galaxy Brain Club time. We're looking to our crystal ball and predicting on November 19th over in the Sky Dome in Korea.
Not actually in the sky, though. That's very important.
Yeah,
it's actually, the Sky Dome is actually very low to the ground.
Okay.
But if you want to be high in the sky,
okay.
then you should go over to thefreezepipe.com, where you can get your bongs, bubblers, dabs, oil rigs, and they all come with a food safe glycerin chamber that you can throw in your freezer for an hour, and it will cool your smoke by over 300 degrees. And they have a new product too, which we've talked about. I actually have two: the blunt tip, which is very nice if you want to get pre-rolled joints or roll your own, or you can just get the vape. The vape is great. I've enjoyed it myself since they sent me one, and really high quality vape. Takes 5-10 cartridges. So you can pick up at any of your local dispensaries, and you can actually use the blunt tip to cool the smoke from the vape. They work together. They've thought of everything over at the Freeze Pipe. So thank you to them for supporting us. And you can use the promo code LFN for Last Free Nation for 10% off your entire order. And you can be higher than the Sky Dome while you watch those World Finals. There you go.
Damn. All right, Monty. Since you're so eager to co-op my setup here, who do you got winning Worlds?
JDG. I mean, it's like we were talking about before. I think JDG, anything short of a world championship is an underperformance for this team. They have been the gold standard. They haven't lost a best of 5 yet. Even when they've been close, they're able to clutch it out. They make great adaptations within series. These players are all so experienced and so good and have such huge champion pools that I think it's very difficult to throw this team for a loop. It is really, really hard to come up with reasons that you think JDG will lose this tournament.
Yeah. I mean, it just has to be an underperformance of some sort. Somebody has to underperform. That's the only thing.
But even when they're underperforming, they still win. That's the frustrating part about that.
Well, it's because they understand. They're able to realize who's underperforming within a series and do things to play into the people that are performing within that same series. And I think that that's something that most teams just don't have the balls to do. It's very hard to be honest with yourself in a series like that because you're so worried about if somebody is underperforming or if somebody's having a rough go in the series or they're getting outplayed by their counterpart. You're so afraid of ruining their confidence by addressing it within a team. You don't want to be oh, well, you're kind of inting, so you're going to be on tank duty for the next couple games. Because that's oh shit, what if he just runs it down completely afterwards? So, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot that goes into this team, but I think they're well coached, they play well together, and they just have insane talent across the board.
Yeah. And somebody always steps up. And the thing is, they have a really reliable way of playing the game of League of Legends, which is that they're just better than you at almost every aspect of the game. And they're not playing a high variance play style. They're not trying to play a bunch of poke or pick compositions. They play blue collar front to back tank team fighting.
They play team fighting League of Legends.
Yeah, exactly.
They play team fighting League of Legends with
and then they just beat you at it.
Strong top laner. Yeah. And then they have they have an insane AD carry. That's one of the things. If you're going to play team fight based League of Legends, you need an absolute monster AD carry, and they have the best one in the world. So
I just think it's
Pretty
really
good team.
difficult to beat them because they're playing like the most fundamental way to play League of Legends, and they're just better at you. And that is the least variance way to play the game. You're not playing some glass cannon poke composition where somebody gets a good ward TP flank, then you just lose the fight. And then on top of that, they just win skirmishes in the early game. They're just better at you at 3v3ing in bot. And
yeah, the way I could see them losing is if standard League of Legends is not good at this tournament. Like, how good is Senna really, right? Like, if Senna is really fucking OP and suddenly we're back to spring and then it's like Keria is playing like all these fucking giga ranged supports, or like the whole meta's changed, you can't really play the engaged supports anymore. Maybe then I could see them losing if like the game is actually really fucked up. Because the game is like kind of fucked up right now, to be honest. Like, I'm playing solo queue and like what's good in solo queue is just very weird. I mean, it's like Bel'Veth is like the best jungler in the game by far, which is a very different champion than everything else. You like will sell your whole fucking family to get Rift Herald when this champion's in the game. I mean, it's weird. Like, you have a lot of like Senna Seraphine lanes coming out. A lot of Senna is just played in general with a bunch of different with a bunch of different AD carries that are not like your standard AD carries, just like things that go bot lane, Senna Karthus, Senna Seraphine. If this is actually the meta at this tournament, maybe JDG is just not going to be the best team in the world at that. That's one of the ways I can see them not winning.
Otherwise, JDG, Power Spike approved for your world champs here for 2023.
I mean, it's exciting because I like, as I said, I don't like it when underdogs win, and I am excited to see JDG complete the League of Legends Grand Slam and be in the conversation as the best team of all time, as Dom said. Like, I think that's the conversation I want to be having at the end of this World Championship.
Yeah, I'm looking back. When was it that the best team won Worlds? Or I guess the de facto best team won Worlds? Last year was definitely not that. Was it the Chinese ones?
I mean, EDG was debatable, I would say. Because, I mean, they did win LPL. I mean, people thought FPX was better. I mean, it's kind of the same way that some people like believe that like BLG is still better than LNG, even though LNG beat them, because like BLG was like better before. But yeah, I mean, EDG, I mean, they like, if the number one seed from what's perceived as the best region ends up winning Worlds, I guess that's considered. I would say Dom1 is the last like for sure one.
I don't know. Top Esports was pretty hyped coming in that year.
I was gonna say, wasn't Top like pretty? Yeah, I felt like Top was pretty.
Yeah, Dom1 was just so dominant in Korea that split that they looked like, because Top was still fighting with JDG. I mean, Top was going 5 games with JDG in finals, whereas like Dom1 was just kind of shitting on everyone.
Yeah. Maybe Dom1, but I think in terms of clear cut favorites, like, you know, Dom1 may have been a favorite, but I'm not sure it was as clear cut as it is right now.
Yeah. No, this is
like, really feels
is
like JDG is a
favorite.
Massive favorite.
I mean, what was the last time we had a team come in winning all 3 of their like being on the path for the Golden Road? It's what, G2 in 2019, but like because they play in Europe, you devalue the European championships. When was the last time you had a team win 3? Was it
I think you're right.
T1 before
T1?
that?
Yeah, T1 in
but they were a
pool 2017.
Yeah, but they lost to Rocks Tigers.
Oh,
in 2016. In 2016, they lost to Rocks Tigers, but they won MSI, right? Because they beat CLG.
Wait, in 2017, who won MSI? I thought they won MSI.
In
they
20, I'm
Uni?
looking.
It was
tournament results. There we go. Events, or I guess time. 2016, right? 2016. Oh, 2017. 2017. They won
MSI in 2017.
Yeah, but then they didn't win summer.
They didn't win.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, did they win summer? They did.
No, they didn't. They got second.
Oh, no,
they lost to
that was
Longzhu.
When Khan went off. That's when Khan went off. Damn. So the last time we had a team approaching Golden Road was, yeah, I mean, G2? I guess the only time ever was G2. That's the only time ever then. Because 2015, SKT lost to EDG and MSI. Insane. Crazy.
Yeah, this could be one of the best teams ever, and it sets the narrative for this Worlds, right? In Korea, in Asia, China getting the opportunity to really cement themselves as the best region in the world, despite not having one of the top 2 teams last finals. But a lot has changed in this 2023 season. Very exciting stuff, y'all. That's it. We did it. We got predicts. We did the good and the bad. You guys can use the information as you will with all of your picks and fantasy stuff that you might be doing with your friends. Dom, you're just covering every single match from home. Yep. Where people, and you got the announcement today or yesterday that you're an official co-streamer of the event. Congratulations. What should people expect in terms of schedule? Because obviously it's a weird time for us here in North America. What are you going to be planning for everyone?
So I've got my stream that I'll do with Yamato. We'll be releasing our picks on Twitter starting next week, and then next weekend we'll be doing a stream where we debate our picks and we come up with a list together.
The top player picks.
Yeah, top player picks.
Got it.
So we'll be doing that next week, and then we'll just go right into the world qualifying series, right into Worlds. There is an outside chance that I might go to Worlds still. We'll see. There's some things in the works, but we're gonna see if we can all get it done in the next couple weeks. But yeah, I mean, I'll be co-streaming every single game. Well, I won't be co-streaming every single game because NA has limitations. So there's gonna be some days that I actually am being forced to take off, but I'll live view those days.
Work safety laws or something like that.
No, I mean, it's just you know how Riot is. Riot always loves making these decisions that they make themselves, but then they hold so they said each region gets a certain amount of slots. So NA has 5 slots, but there's 6 co-streamers because Sapnap is also co-streaming. So essentially people have to rotate. Each of us have to take off one day in play-ins and 1 day in groups. But it's when I heard that, I'm like, why can't just all 6 of us co-stream then?
Well, it's a classic Riot thing. They create a rule system and then can't figure out how to change their own rules.
Yeah,
well, what they do with everything.
Who knows? Maybe someone catches a Pushank and we'll be sick for a day or 2. So you'll take those slots. It won't be you. Monty, how about you? What do we got coming up?
Be doing SI and Power Spike with you guys throughout all of Worlds. Good times.
Can't wait. And then finally, I'll be heading on over there to Korea. I'll be covering the matches from home remote to start. That'll be up on my YouTube channel. And then the in-person ones for the second half of the Swiss/group stages. Can't wait. Can't wait to be in person and see how things go. Everyone, it's been great to get these shows out to you. A heck of a 2023 for those of you watching live stream. Thanks for sticking around for all 3-ish hours. And for those of you watching at home, make sure to like and subscribe to our channels for all of your league content coming up for our Worlds season. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you guys next time on Power Spike.